Hey everybody, welcome back. We're continuing our reading of the Federalist Papers, a book every political scientist should read. We were still on Alexander Hamilton's essay number 16, which was titled The Same Subject Continued, which was based on essay 15, which was titled The Insufficiency of the Present Confederation to Preserve the Union. So, hefty titles as always. Let's continue, alright? Our past experience has exhibited the operation of this spirit in its full light. There would in fact be an insuperable difficulty in ascertaining when force could with propriety be employed. So when you need to use force, albeit even if it's sparingly. In the article of pecuniary contribution, which would be most usual source of delinquency, it would often be impossible to decide whether it had proceeded from disinclination or inability. Okay, so does delinquency stem from disinclinations or inabilities? The pretense of the latter would always be at hand, and the case must be very flagrant in which its fallacy could be detected with sufficient certainty. Flagrant fallacies to justify the harsh expedient of compulsion. The harsh expedient, so something to quickly get them out of there. It is easy to see that this problem alone, as often as it should occur, would open a wide field to the majority that happened to prevail in the National Council for the exercise of factitious views, of partiality and of oppression. So if it occurs, it's going to happen on a wide scale, and if it ends up in the National Council, it'll be because of partiality, people seeking to oppress one another, and factitious views, which sounds a lot like fake news. It seems to require no pains to prove that the states ought not to prefer a national constitution, which could only be kept in motion by the instrumentality of a large army. Okay, so the Constitution can only be upheld with terms of a large army, continually on foot to execute the ordinary requisitions or decrees of government. Okay, so the military being used to keep your Constitution alive and preserved. Wow, okay. And yet this is the plain alternative involved by those who wish to deny it the power of extending its operation to individuals. Such a scheme, if practicable at all, would instantly degenerate into a military despotism. Yeah. Okay, that's right. I was hoping he was going to say something like that. So, military despotism, if they are prone to partiality, and oppression and factitious views. But it will be found in every light impracticable. The resources of the Union would not be equal to the maintenance of an army considerable enough to confine the larger states within the limits of their duty. Okay, so larger states being able to bully up the small ones in terms of where the power of the Union comes in. Well, yeah, it seems confining larger states. So that could also be in terms of economic power too, if you think about it. Within the limits of their duty, nor would the means ever be furnished for forming such an army in the first instance. Whoever considers the populousness and strength of several of these states singly at the present juncture, looks forward to what they will become, even at the distance of half a century, will at once dismiss as idle and visionary any scheme which aims at regulating their movements by laws. Okay, so visionary schemes, so regulation, which aims to regulate their movements by laws to operate upon them and their collective capacities. So regulating the collective through law, in their movements, and to be executed by coercion applicable to them in the same capacities. So executed by coercion using force. A large army continually on foot to enact the decrees of the government, and if you disobey, you will be under the oppression of coercion. Okay. A project of this kind is little less romantic than the non-taming spirit attributed to the fabulous heroes and demigods of antiquity. Even in those confederacies which have been composed of members smaller than many of our counties, the principle of legislation for sovereign states supported by military coercion has never been found effectual. Okay, so contending that you're not going to really be able to have a confederacy that's healthy enough in its behavior to where you're going to be able to subdue the bigger states if they decide not to listen. And if the military has to get involved, it'll turn into a despotism and it'll all be coercion and oppression, and it won't really be the most efficient means to secure a bond to the laws that were laid down. It has rarely been attempted to be employed, but against the weaker members, and in most instances attempts to coerce the refractory. An attempt to coerce the refractory, so those who seem to be going backwards, seem to not be progressing as much. If you try to coerce them, and let's see. Attempts to coerce the refractory and disobedient have been the signals of bloody wars. So if you try to employ that sort of military coercion on those who are trying to be disobedient and refrain and refract and reduce their presence, it's going to be a signal of a potential bloody war. Wow. In which one half of the Confederacy has displayed its banners against the other half. Displaying banners. Yeah, so just confederacies turning into sort of tribal warfare, essentially, is what he's really laid down for us. The result of these observations, to an intelligent mind, must be clearly this: that if it be possible at any rate to construct a federal government capable of regulating the common concerns and preserving the general tranquility. Okay, so let's break this down. Regulating common concerns. So, federal government's duties of regulating common concerns, and then preserving tranquility, preserving peace, law, and order, right? So the federal government's job is to preserve tranquility. Yet today, if, let's say, Trump decided to send the military in the streets to quell the riots, people will call him a fascist dictator, right? And it's like, this federal government's job is to maintain peace. If the mayors and the governors are neglecting their jobs to maintain order for law-abiding, working citizens, then, that's when other factors come in. But it is quite interesting how the states are almost acting like their own confederacies today, right? Displaying their banners against each other of their political candidates. It's quite interesting. It must be founded as to the objects committed to its care upon the reverse of the principle contended for by the opponents of the proposed Constitution. It must carry the agency to the persons of the citizens. Carry the agency. It must stand in need of no intermediate legislations. It must stand in need. Reminds me of Heidegger when he said, when you stand in being. Just totally in it. But must itself be empowered to employ the arm of the ordinary magistrate, to execute its own resolutions. Empowered to employ, the arm of the ordinary magistrate. Ordinary magistrate. Not the military despot. The resolutions instead of regulations. The majesty of the national authority must be manifested through the medium of the courts of justice. The government of the Union, like that of each state, must be able to address itself immediately to the hopes and fears of individuals, and to attract to its support those passions which have the strongest influence upon the human heart. Okay, so to attract the support of the people that are really, that's their really down heart policy that they want. What are they fighting for? You need to attract that passion to you. States also, though, answering to address its state's hopes and fears as well. So it's a good signal for what is the duty of the governors right? Are they doing their jobs? Are they maintaining the peace? Are they regulating the common concerns? Or are they politicking for their own nepotism?